Explanation of the evidence at the Pentagon on 9/11, created by Wayne Coste, narrated by David Chandler. Here's the table of contents, and here's the table of contents for chapters 9 to 17. Chapter 14, the April Gallop lawsuit. This is one of the highlighted areas where there's been a lot of dispute, and a lot of people have hardened their opinions based on what was said by April Gallop or alleged to be said by April Gallop. So we'll be taking a look at it in some detail. The April Gallop lawsuit exemplifies the poor quality of research about the Pentagon. The lawsuit claimed no plane at the Pentagon. It asserted damage was caused by a missile and/or other explosives. It was asserted that April Gallop walked out of the impact hole in the Pentagon. No supporting evidence was presented. The claim that April Gallop walked out of the impact hole because it was included in a legal complaint has been cited as proof of no plane. The location of the room where April Gallop was located, room 1E517, is absent from the 9/11 literature. We don't really know where it is. There was a vague description of the area, but that's all. The Gallop legal team provided no supporting deposition or even suggested a path regarding the route traveled from her office to the impact hole. This is Wayne's diagram showing the presumed general area of her office and a possible route to the entrance hole. If she had taken this route, she would have run into flames. This exit route seems very implausible and doesn't agree with any contemporaneous descriptions. Here is the entrance hole about 3 minutes after impact. It's a massive inferno. Here's a picture of the north end of the entrance hole taken a little later. There's a wide-ranging fire, and through one of the ground floor windows you can see fire on the inside. It's highly implausible that someone would walk into this area as a means of escape from an area that was presumably not burning. Here's another photo of the entrance hole just after impact. It's all aflame. So here is what the lawsuit complaint is. April Gallop versus Cheney et al. This is the initial filing. Paragraph 2. To cause and arrange for high explosive charges to be detonated inside the Pentagon and/or a missile of some sort to be fired at the building at or about the time the wayward airliner supposedly arrived there, to give the false impression that hijackers had crashed the plane into the building, as had apparently happened in New York. Paragraph 4. In the attack on the Pentagon in particular, plaintiff avers that the official story that a hijacked plane crashed into the Pentagon and exploded, causing the plaintiff's injuries, is false. In fact, the bombing was accomplished another way, so as to limit the damage, protect the defendants, and only make it appear that a plane had crashed into the building. Paragraph 6. Her desk was roughly 40 feet from the point where the plane allegedly hit the outside wall. As she sat down to work, there was an explosion, then another. Walls collapsed and the ceiling fell in. Hit in the head, she was able to grab the baby and make her way towards the daylight, showing through a blasted opening in the outside wall. There was no airplane wreckage and no burning airplane fuel anywhere, only rubble and dust. Disposition of the lawsuit. Attorneys were sanctioned for filing a factually unsupported case. Gallop's attorneys were saved from ridicule because one of the judges in the appeals panel, Judge John Walker, was a cousin of George Herbert Walker Bush. Failure of their appeal was blamed on nepotism and not the lack of solid preparation for the case. So in the decision it says, indeed, in attempting to marshal a series of unsubstantiated and inconsistent allegations in order to explain why American Airlines Flight 77 did not crash into the Pentagon, the complaint utterly fails to set forth a consistent, much less plausible theory for what actually happened that morning in Arlington, Virginia. Furthermore, and notwithstanding the unsupported assumptions regarding the fate of American Airlines Flight 77, the complaint also fails to plausibly allege the existence of a conspiracy among the defendants. Although, like the district court, we do not reach the question of whether judicial estoppel bars Gallop's complaint. We note that the complaint is facially irreconcilable with factual allegations made by Gallop in other actions. By the way, estoppel is the principle that precludes a person from asserting something contrary to what is implied by a previous action or statement, or by a previous pertinent judicial determination. In previous actions, she said a plane had impacted the Pentagon, and now she was saying it did not. There was no evidence presented in this case as to why she changed her opinion. Wayne says he was actually in the courtroom when Bill Veal was defending April Gallop in front of 3 judges in the New Haven, Connecticut-based courthouse. When he was asked the question, did she make these other assertions that a plane did hit the Pentagon in the past, it looked like he was just kicked in the stomach. That was the end of the game. Wayne says that he was just floored. He had expected a much better response, but it became apparent that the whole case was based on nothing. While Gallup's counsel asserted at oral argument that Gallup's inconsistent claims could be explained by the emergence of new evidence since her previous submissions, he did not identify any. We therefore do not know whether Gallup's reconsideration of the events of September 11, 2001 is the product of new evidence or of a new counsel. So, what did April Gallop actually say? About 5 weeks after 9/11, April Gallop is interviewed by the Center for Military History. We're going to go through this because it's an important piece of the April Gallop story. Here's the cover page of the transcript of the recorded interview. I have the interviewer's questions coded in orange and April's responses in yellow. And what happened that day? Well, actually, I talked to my first sergeant before she went to her meeting and to let her know I have received my letter from my director. I sat down at the computer at 1 Echo 517, in other words, room 1E 517. And as soon as I was about to turn on the computer, boom. Okay? There was such a great impact at that moment. I didn't even get to turn the computer on. You know, the computer blew and just everything changed. It went from a light, pleasant environment to just total dismal darkness. Flames, fire. It happened that fast. There was no, slow motion about it. It just happened so fast. You know, when it hit, it was like everything crumbled. Walls, the computer blew fire. It just all happened really instantaneously. And I wasn't covered all the way. I was just covered from my waist down. So I was able to move around, look and see what in the world happened. Interviewer. Covered in debris? April. I was covered in debris. Skipping down a bit. And so you're covered in debris up to your waist. It's mostly black in there? Black, but you could see things by the fire that was in the back. You were able to just see certain things, by the light of the fire, because of the flame. But it was dark in there. Smoke, a lot of smoke. And the flames wasn't so big, and you wouldn't have been able to really see very much, except right in front of you. Skipping down some more. I took a deep breath first because I was like, whoa, that happened so fast. To go from a room like light to just something like that. You have to pinch yourself and say, oh my God, is this real? And then I had my son with me. So my newborn baby was with me. And so I was trying to maintain myself so I would not freak out. I didn't know you brought your son to work. April. Yeah, I brought because I couldn't leave him home. And he was right next to you? He was right next to me in his stroller. Was he okay? Yeah, but I didn't think so at first because his stroller got caught on fire. So I thought when he was crying because he was burning. That's what I thought. And first I had to get myself together emotionally before I thought about, okay, what's my next step? Because I can't believe this happened. My son, but I calmed down and I just was thinking, okay, I needed to do something. I see over that side and the stroller, and I'm like, my God, that's why he's crying. He wasn't next to you? No, he was blown. He was blown. It was like, he was next to you, but next to me, but when the impact hit, the stroller was blown in one area, and when I did finally find him, he was farther from the stroller, under debris. But I thought he was in the stroller at first, and then when I turned to look back, I could see people from the ceiling. I could see people, I could hear people, a lady in fire. I could just see different things when I looked to the back. Skipping down a little bit. So you've got your son. I crawled out, got the stuff off from under me, and I crawled out. And I went to the stroller. That was my first thing because I thought he was crying because he was in the stroller. He wasn't in there. And I was like, oh my God, where's my son? Skipping down a little. Eventually I find my son in the debris. He was in a ball like that, but when I picked him up, he was like laid out like that. So I was thinking, oh my God, his bones are broken. I was just thinking so many things, crying like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And then that's when I heard, and the name is blanked out. Well, I didn't know exactly who it was at that particular time, but it was a male and a female saying, where you all at? We found a way. You could hear them talking, but I could bits and pieces because I thought for sure we were going to get burned up next. Because even though we were free from the debris, we didn't see a way out. There was no way out. They made a little groove or a little way, and we got over it. They helped us climb over it, and so from such and such explained to me, found a way further out, a hole so we could follow him to get out. So they helped us get out of our trapped area, and then they helped us get the way out. And after that, they said I passed out because I was just so glad to be out of there. You know, I passed out with my baby. They said somebody helped, somebody had my baby. At that point, I believe it's going to come back to me after a while, but I don't remember from the time we actually got right outside the building. That part is still a little not with me yet. Interviewer: so, you don't recall at what point you passed out? No. I just remember coming to at the hospital, wondering where is my son. It's the first thing I could think of. So when I did wake up, I really thought it was a dream actually. I thought I was having a bad nightmare. But when I woke up, there were people in the room, and that's when I knew it was not a nightmare. So that's April Gallop's story as told of the Center for Military History. Cruz Cortez also talks about April Gallop's baby. On the first floor of the E-ring, in the darkness after the crash, Cruz Cortez awoke to the sound of a baby crying. A wall had collapsed, pinning her at her desk. She and her co-workers had been knocked unconscious. Her colleague, Specialist April Gallop, 30, had brought her 2-month-old son, Elisha, to the office so she could enroll him at the Pentagon daycare center. Gallop, also trapped, regained consciousness and saw the baby's stroller on fire. But Elisha had been thrown clear. In the room's smoke-filled darkness, Cruz Cortez sensed fire raging beyond the wall that had collapsed onto her. Another co-worker, Army Corporal Eduardo Brunaporto, 28, helped free her. They helped Gallop find the baby, who was not badly injured. These were enlisted clerks and administrative assistants, not the kind of people who get window offices at the Pentagon. So they were in an interior office on E-ring, searching for a way out through the smoke and dust. Everybody come toward me, Cruz Cortez heard Brunaporto yell. He had found a blown-out window in a demolished office across what was left of the hall. About 10 people gathered at the window and began jumping down. It was a 7-foot drop. Sergeant Christopher Brahman and April Gallop's baby. As he ran toward the source, the first victim he encountered was a lady staggering away with a baby in her arms. I grabbed the baby and realized the back of the baby's head was charred. So I ran to look for medical help, he recalled. He handed off the child to someone outside and returned to the burning area with Lieutenant Colonel Paul Anderson, who Sergeant Brahman said uttered a prayer before the two entered. He said, "Dear Lord, give me the strength," and we went in. So this diagram shows a more realistic path of escape. The window would probably be somewhere around columns 3N or 5N north in wedge 2. This is about where the fire truck would have been located. Here are the likely fire escape windows. It's not clear which she would have gone out, but these fit the description of a 7-foot drop. These would be the old-style windows in wedge 2, not the blast-resistant windows in wedge 1. Note the blast-resistant window on the right compared to the old-style windows on the left, and the difference in how they respond to the destruction. In Chapter 15, we will talk about another much-discussed topic, ground effect.